everyone. Welcome to After the Snuff, the brand new weekly recap, exit interview, fun wind up for Dynamic Character Productions, Moneta Bank. I'm your host, John Millsip, and this week I have some fantastic guests. I am joined by our first boot of Moneta Bank, Jenn. Jenn, so happy to have you here today.
Yeah, happy to be here too.
Excellent. And I am joined by the hosts of Moneta Bank, McKenna and Alex. Welcome, both of you. So glad we get you at the beginning of this season to kind of talk about some of the ins and outs of maybe some of the behind the scene pictures of Moneta Bank.
Excited to be here and talk on this new show.
Same. Very happy to be here in our new version of this current show we had, and I feel I missed the memo. I don't have my Dynamic Character Productions buff on hand ready to wear. So next time I'm here, I'll make sure to have it around.
Well, let's dive into it. We have a brand new season of Dynamic Character Productions out here. This is our mini. It filmed back in McKenna, Alex, when did we film this? January. So it's been a couple of months here, and boy, oh boy, what a fantastic cast we have gathered here this time around. A lot of fun. Jenn, remind me, this was your first org?
The first time participating in something like that? Yeah.
Oh, right. What was it like? What was it like coming into a room, seeing all these 14 or these 13 other people who you're going to end up playing the game? What was that first impression for you?
First impression. I feel like I felt intimidated, and I feel like that because I think in that intro, that audition video or whatever, I said, that I can't lie. I know that about myself, and so sort of in leading up to it, I was just thinking, okay, damn it, if I can't lie, I'm a really sort of an easy target because people can suss me out so quickly on where I stand, because my body language just gives it away. It's terrible. And then I thought, okay, coming in, I'm going to be in. I thought I either would be a very easy mark or I will go far because people will want to align with me because they know I will be very honest with them, And so I come in and I'm like, oh my God, these people must be all some super fans of some sort. I'm sure some of them came in thinking I'm going to tell everyone that I want to work with them. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, oh shit, like where am I going to stand, And then on top of that, so I mean, I've been in the US for a long period now, like about 9-10 years now. But I mean, I come from Asia, I come from Singapore, and so in the Asian sort of culture, there's a bit of a collectivism. There is a sense of less like going with the flow as opposed to coming off the bat and like going fast. I mean, it's not that we're not proactive, but there is a certain sort of reserve in just watching, observing, and so you could sort of, I think. I mean, I don't know how the edit kind of came out, but I feel like that was my approach going. You can sort of see that, like the sort of slowness, and I felt like the moment off the bat, immunity challenge. I'm just like, okay, so the data point that my tribe mates are now going to have is how I do on a trivia question about American culture. I'm like, okay, if that's how it's gonna be, that's how it's gonna be, And then so yeah, I guess I've digressed a little bit, but to go back to your point, I think a little intimidated, but also just like excited, right? Just to see, well, how will all of this sort of play out for me, knowing it's like knowing with this sort of handicap, but could possibly be an asset in other situations, something like that.
Well, we love getting new people here on Dynamic Character Productions, and after your interview, everyone who was on the call was just like, we need her on this cast. You brought such like a fun energy that I'm sure everyone watching here could now really appreciate, because we didn't get to see much of you in the episodes that we were looking for, because I think you are hilarious. You bring a great energy, and we were robbed of that content. So I'm so excited that you played.
We really were, Rob, because some of the things that you highlighted that like could go either way with to get you targeted or get you allies, I thought was gonna put you in a spot to gain allies because in the type of game that you played where the game's very fast paced, it's all within a day. I think knowing someone that you can like believe their word, I think it's worth its weight in gold, especially in a fast paced game where I'm like, okay, Jenn says she feels good with me. That's locked. I can move on to look at something else. So I didn't even think about the cultural aspect that you mentioned, and that actually creates like another layer to it that I wasn't really even thinking about as we were going through the day.
Yeah. Like I didn't think about it either after I sort of left, and when I sort of was voted out, right, and I was sort of processing it all. I mean, there were so many layers to what I was thinking. One layer being, okay, the first vote is arguably the most impersonal vote, right, of everything, and yet why do I still feel like it stings, even though I cognitively know that it was going to be kind of the case, And I thought, okay, it's because there is a part of me that would feel like, okay, there must have been something that everyone else had decided was like, that caused them to think that I could do without this person. So in a way, I mean, when it's sort of a bit of a callback to, all of us have this desire to want to belong, right? In a game that's a social. I mean, in this case, it was so short, and you knew that there wasn't time to build that social bond, but you're just thinking, okay, was there something about me in that 10 minutes, in that 20 minutes that also prompted people decide to vote you out? Because you could make the argument that if people were allied with you or they wanted to keep you around, they wouldn't be kicking you out over how you answered on a trivia question. So you're left sort of really thinking about these heuristics. And then I was also thinking about, okay, is it that my cultural, is there a cultural aspect to the way that I played that might have not gelled as well with the sort of the fast-paced way of it, that you got to be proactive off the bat. Some people have nothing, no data points to assess you, whereas I could imagine sort of in a more long drawn out game with more data points, it might have played better to my style, something like that.
So all I'm hearing from that answer is that when we have another long game ready, Jenn is ready to go.
Jenn is ready to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that long game format will really benefit someone like Jenn, who wants to sit back and kind of feel everyone out, get a good vibes for everyone, and figure out exactly what they're thinking and how they're thinking, how they're presenting their ideas. But I mean, like you said, like Andy C said in the episode, the first vote is pretty, it's just one of those things that you have to just make a decision.
Right.
And as Kyle says in response to Andy saying it's the most arbitrary vote, the only data point you have at that point is that first challenge, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So let's get into this. We have our two tribes this season. We have the Oro tribe, which is the tribe you're on, Jenn, with yourself, Kyle, Sam, Jabbar, Andy C, Rob, and Kayla. Jenn, who on this tribe were you really vibing with right away? Like, who did you get good feelings from in the limited time that you spent with them?
Right. I think definitely Sam, and I think part of it was because I could notice that he was also a bit more, he was also observing, and he was watching back, and I felt like I wanted to ally myself with someone who I felt could be an equal partner, and who would respect me as such, and I would respect them as such. So I didn't want to be dragging someone along as a number and all that. And then, I mean, of course, you could sort of argue like, okay, pre getting on these sorts of things, how do you want to sort of play, right? Do you want to play a game that would be sort of optimized to get you to the end? Or, I mean, how does all of this jive in tandem with your own personal goals, right? And I thought, well, what is a game that's true to myself? I don't know that I know that. And then when I went in, I saw my crewmates, I'm like, okay, it's like this metacognitive process. Why am I vibing with certain people more than others? Okay, is it because of the way they present? Is it because of how they're interacting with me? And so I guess the short answer is I jive with Sam the best because it felt like when I saw him sort of sitting back and observing, I thought, okay, this person isn't a rash person. This person has I mean, I don't know if that ended up playing out. I'm just
we'll have to see.
Right. So and then also thinking about, well, in a group, who's the one who is speaking up first? What are they saying? What are they and when they say something, let's say they are proactive, is it coming from a place of anxiety or is it coming from a place of wanting to take charge? I mean, I just feel like I was just cataloging all of that information, if that
Seems
makes
like
sense.
you had a lot spinning in the small time that you had. So good on you to be able to think that fast.
For sure.
So in opposition to the Euro tribe, we have the Argento tribe, which I have learned is not named after Italian horror legend Dario Argento and is actually just like
silver in Italian.
Yeah, it's an Italian word.
John, as you know, I'm the movie buff in me. That's exactly what I was aiming for.
Yeah, I was excited the entire day. I was just like chuckling to myself the entire time, knowing that that's not the reason why it was named that, but just hoping. But our Argento tribe consists of Karli, and Evie, Naropa, Evan, Yap, Emily, and Simona. So, Jen, you didn't get a chance to actually play the game with any of these people, but because this is how we do things here at Dynamic Character Productions, we are going to scatter some questions throughout this from the loving viewers of Dynamic Character Productions and your loving fans, Jen. Let me say, there is so much praise for you in our community right now. So the first question is actually going to come from Lydia here. And she just wants to know who on the other starting tribe, so on that Argento tribe, do you think you might have vibed with or might have been able to align with?
I don't really know, I think, because I wasn't paying attention to that. I was just like, what trivia question? Dang. So I honestly would have just gone because I felt good about my alliance with Sam, or what we call it an alliance. I would have, if it had played out that I would have met them, I probably would have sort of checked in with Sam about who he felt good with and went from there.
I think that is something that a lot of players in Survivor don't value enough. I don't think they value other people's opinions on who to work with to a point where it can really benefit them. So it's really nice and refreshing hearing you say that, because I think a lot of people would be like, this is who I personally feel I can connect with, but does that person connect with my ally as well? It's a really important question to be asking yourself in these games.
Right, like I feel like it stems from an initial sort of clarity about who you feel like you trust, right? And then if you have decided, I mean, at least for me, I had decided that, okay, whatever it is, Sam will be my ride or die. If he steps me the band, I don't see it, then so be it. I'm at peace with that. And so then all my decisions flow from that first principle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Man,
I mean,
absolutely.
in that case, I feel like you're more gearing more toward Naropa. He's that silent watcher type over on Argento. So if you had been over on Argento, I think you and Naropa are aligned.
Honestly, I think there's a lot of people on our Argento that Jen would have been able to connect with. There's some that I don't think on initial you would have, because I think they could have came on a little more game heavy, like game strong 2 forward. But there's definitely people on that group as you watch the episodes or as the season goes along that I think you would be like, oh yeah, if I was on their starting tribe, I think that we will have had a good conversation on our first scramble or on our first session of being safe. Naropa also, sidetrack, thank God for Naropa.
Yes. Thank God for Naropa.
Behind the curtain,
the reason why you were in the waiting room for a half an hour.
The reason why our game started a half an hour later than expected was we had someone who was supposed to be on the cast for whatever reasons. I'm not going to say ghost, but
just
didn't show up when they were supposed to.
we're scrambling.
Yeah.
We're scrambling. Lydia, who was helping us with production that day, reached out to Naropa. Naropa said yes, came in, and the day was saved for all of us.
Yeah, we get Naropa's confessional later on in the episode where he's explaining the situation. You know, I got a phone call from my friend, and I didn't have anything to do that day, so I said yes. I don't think Naropa knew what he was getting into when he did say yes, but we are so glad that you did, Naropa, because...
But Naropa coming in, the reason why I say this is it actually, I don't remember the specifics of who, but Naropa coming into the mix actually upended the original tribe setups that we had. Naropa coming in, we had to make some last minute changes because of we really strive hard to. There's always going to be connections in a game whenever we go. The odds of it happening are a lot higher than people expect. So we do our best to try to separate it, try to find dynamics just through our initial impressions of all of you to create and balanced tribes on either side and give everyone a chance to succeed. So Naropa actually was that one last curveball where we had to scatter, make a couple changes.
Do these tribes still work?
Where like some connections we had to ultimately say we had to let them be together because it either created too much of a gender imbalance or it created too many people on the same side. So that's how, as we see later in the episode, we see Kayla and Jabbar on a tribe together and Yap and Simona.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm happy for Naropa that he wasn't the first boot after getting great through all of them. Such a letdown. So,
imagine that.
For him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, and of course, we do see confessionals later on from Jabbar knowing Kayla and be like, "Oh, Kayla, I know you can be tricky here, so you better not be today."
Be on her best behavior. The name of the episode.
Yeah, and we have Simona and we have Yap on the Argento tribe, who both are like, "I know you. We haven't played together, but I know you." And I think sometimes when we're looking as an outside viewer into the org community, we kind of don't realize how small it is because people are just out there playing games and they're connected because of that. You just get into that experience, and we at Dynamic Character Productions really try and focus on getting newer people into the org community and giving them a new experience. So it can cause a bit of an issue when we're trying to divide these tribes just to make sure that there's balance, like you said, Alex, with who knows who and how they can interact with each other.
Yeah,
and sometimes we don't even know. That is one thing we can ask, and we do in our applications. We ask everyone, "What's your org experience? What are some orgs you've played?" If we have people who have played 15, 20 orgs and they don't list every single org, there's no way we can know that they ended up playing a game with someone else. So sometimes we're just surprised when we find out that some of these people know each other.
We get it in confessional.
No, that's fair. Now I think we appreciate that. I mean, I certainly appreciate that y'all like try your best to make this like experience like as fair as it can be. And I really accept that there's this variability. It is what it is.
So after we're introduced to the tribes, we do get the general Dynamic Character Production breakdown of rules. Obviously, any tie vote goes immediately to Rux, and no messaging. That's one of the things that we do take pride in our minis is there's no messaging whatsoever. You can't talk on Zoom, you can't talk on Facebook, no texting each other. We want everything to happen in these scramble rooms, mostly so we can have video evidence of it. So we have it for our episodes.
This is a show at the end of the day.
But also, I think it just adds another dynamic to our game that a lot of other orgs don't have, because not being able to message people really means you have to be paying attention to when you can get into breakout rooms with people and talk to people. And you always have to be wary of other people coming into those breakout rooms, which we see happen several times in this episode, where Kayla is trying to have conversations with Kyle and just be like, "Kyle, I want to work with you." But every time she says, "Kyle, I want to work with you," she can't further the explanation because someone else is coming into that room.
And one time it was Jenn.
And one time it was Jenn. So makes the game honestly, it makes the game feel a little bit more like Survivor, like you're actually on an island despite playing from the comfort of your home.
Right.
And this season, Moneta Bank has a brand new twist that we have introduced this year. So McKenna and Alex, walk us through how you came to the idea of the coin twist this season and where it came from, how you decided to implement it, and how it all worked out.
So I didn't mean to do
the thumbs up. Yeah,
Alex, we need to do monies, and how do we make it better? Like, I really wanted to do the monies, and then Alex had the really, I feel like, better idea of go to tribal and survive, and that's how you get your coins, and not putting the emphasis on immunity.
Yeah. So it was a very much, McKenna and I both had this idea separately. And then we both come together and be like, McKenna's like, I want to do something with money. I was like, funny you say that. I want to do something with fire tokens and make it actually good. And so, because like we saw it on Winners at War for people who are Survivor fans and watch the show, and there was so much potential there. Like, you have Newell saying it's the token economy. You create a new dynamic of duplicity of anything within the game. And I was like, let's combine that. Let's combine willing tokens. But I want risk involved. I don't want to just reward people being good at a competition, because competitions are arbitrary. There's nothing like McKenna's our challenge person. She loves a good challenge, but I'm like, your reward is that you're safe. But the people that are actually now having to play the social strategic game of Survivor, having to vote someone out, should be rewarded. And why not reward them with both a chance to get a token from surviving, and also, if they're good with you and the person who goes out, they can will you tokens. And then now you have our big token, our bank that has all the advantages, and that's the only method of getting advantages in this game this season.
Yeah, it adds an interesting like way to play the game, because we're always trying to shake up our minis, because you know, we have a limited amount of time in the pre-merge, we have the post, and then we have the post-merge. So what is one way we can try and keep the castaways on their toes? And that is a vault with advantages that everyone can see who is going in and out of. And I thought like that would be like an amazing twist. We will get more into the bank and the vault and everything like that in episode 2 and the rest of the episodes to come, because Jenn, your tribe didn't really dabble with the bank
at all.
So you guys didn't go into the vault at all the first round. So really the viewers will get more into it in episode 2, but I'm just excited that we were able to throw in a new, fresh twist to our minis, where it's not just, all right, 2 tribes swap, you know, 2 more votes merge.
And I think the really interesting thing about giving these coins to the losing tribe after they survive tribal council is it's kind of a catch-up mechanism, which Survivor can lack sometimes. And especially in a mini, like in a condensed game where it's happening over a few hours instead of a month. We find that people tend to stick to what they know a lot more. So the arbitrary starting tribes can really end up sticking together in those swap situations, in those merge situations. So if a team does get decimated and you know, becomes one of those loser teams that keeps losing players and hemorrhaging all their players because they can't seem to win an immunity challenge, they do get into a big disadvantage come swaps and merges in a mini. So giving them the opportunity to obtain advantages, it kind of evens the playing field a little bit there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it also creates, and something that I wanted to see, and we'll see if we see it this season, is how selfish do you want to be as an individual player? Because like the most important thing, and like Jenn is one of the players, is you want to be safe. You want to be safe. Like, just, I feel like psychologically the thing is, don't worry about any of the advantages. Don't worry about any of that. Let's win immunity. Let's be safe. Let's get to merge so that we can get onto the jury, and then like the game starts. But I wanted to see and create a situation where, do you have players that are greedy enough to be, these are going to be useful later on. What if I just keep intentionally losing challenges, forcing my groups to go into tribal? As long as I'm in a good position, I'm going to keep getting financially more wealthy heading into the merge. And if I get there, I'm at an advantage over everyone else that's left in the game.
Well, let's get into this first immunity challenge because it happens. Like you
Jen
said,
would
Jen,
rather
it
not.
Right away.
Jen would rather.
And we
not.
have to, Jen. I'm sorry, we have to get into it.
It's all good.
So in this immunity challenge, each of our tribes have 7 players. So 6 of them are going to have to go into a breakout room. They're going to have to solve a riddle to open a safety deposit box. And in those safety deposit boxes are a series of coins, which they need to add up, provide an answer to the production member who's in there so that, they don't have to remember it or anything. The production member writes it down, and then after all 6 of them are collected, the 7th member goes in, the production member provides them with all of the answers that the rest of the tribe gave, and they need to answer a math equation themselves. Jen, I have to ask you, have you tried A1 steak sauce since this challenge?
No, I'm not a barbecue person. So I think I just knew that question would be the trivia questions. It's like a hit or a miss, right? I knew I could do the math. And on hindsight, I probably should have just been the 7th person or volunteered for that because I was really confident in my math abilities, but not with the trivia. But well, it was all too quick. So
conveniently, the question that you did have, though, was a popular steak sauce. And the answer was A1, which is just the box you happened to guess. So it worked out in the end. Unlike Sam later on on your tribe, who does start randomly guessing boxes, also reveals A1. Because he can't figure out the answer to
it was
the riddle
the F1. It was the
the popular European professional racing league.
See, that
I didn't make that one
because I'm a big F1 fan.
You should have.
Oh, there you go.
I just watched the race last night, 1 a.m. in Japan. The race
in a different world. In a different world.
We would.
Jen goes in and kills it.
Bank.
But hey, that's Survivor sometimes.
That's the way it is. It's all good. It's all good.
Now, McKenna, I have a question from an editing perspective. Let's just let it in, because I realized something when rewatching this episode. Do you loop the audio of like me asking the question? Because I sounded the exact same every time someone asked me to re-say the question.
You're just also you say everything very much the same. You're just like, yes, this is what it is. Can you repeat it? Yes, this is what it is. You're just, you sound so...
Your level.
I really try hard not to change the emphasis on words that I'm saying when I'm giving clues out, because I don't want to give any advantage to anyone. So I try to be very meticulous. It's good to know that I am, and that you're not just tricking the audience by making them think I am.
But this challenge was obviously longer than you had seen. Jen did guess several other boxes before getting to A1. And some of the other people were also like in there thinking about their math for a little while. Andy at the end was in and out constantly. So I did like condense the challenge quite a bit, but
to be fair, and I'm going to give this past a lot of props here. Our first challenge historically is the longest challenge people will deal with in a season, but in the past we have had some pre-merge challenges that lasted way longer than we tested, because we tested all. We tried to make sure what works. Like for this challenge, we did end up changing some of the cell boxes because they were too difficult. We tried to change things up to make it more balanced across the board, which obviously you can only make a trivia question so balanced.
Right.
But you guys were, even with delays, were a lot faster than any of our other minis, and it's not close. So thank you all for my
Yes.
sanity there.
Yeah, like we had tested like ways to how do we do the numbers, do we Zoom message them, and then we ultimately landed on tell the prod member within that's in the breakout room and they'll keep track of everything so there's no player error or accidental like messaging someone else in the Zoom chat and all that. So there's a lot behind the scenes that goes down when we challenge test to make a challenge as good as we can get it. Like,
yeah, and you know what? Sometimes we, as production members who have been doing this for a long time, we overestimate the abilities of some of our contestants.
Sometimes we underestimate.
Sometimes we underestimate them, and they blow things out of the water.
Mhm.
Sometimes they take 40 minutes to solve a word puzzle. Them's the breaks. It happens sometimes. We can't account for it at all times. But in all honesty, this challenge did go a lot faster than I kind of expected it to.
Speaking of not being able to count.
Me? Yes. What?
No, I meant all the times that Andy V had to go in to switch it because a couple people had their numbers wrong.
Yeah.
That's right. And that is kind of one of the important things with this challenge is, and part of the balancing that production put into this challenge was, how do we make up for the fact that some people are probably going to get this wrong? Either they'll get their answer wrong and they'll start guessing random safety deposit boxes like we see both Naropa and Rob do with the B9 question.
Also get A1.
And they also started on A1 where there are coins. So like, oh, this must be the answer then. Cool. Because of that, it's like, how do we make it so that we can figure out where the error is when we don't have people coming in and out? And we didn't want to prolong the challenge by having contestants go back to the main room, come into the breakout room one at a time to redo their questions. So the solution we came up with was, after a couple of guesses, we just open all the safety deposit boxes so that the person in that hero role at the end doing all the math can just check everyone's math and do it themselves. So Andy, and you know what? Andy's a math teacher. Andy V, that is. Andy V is a math teacher. And sometimes simple math like this throws you off. And the way it's presented, you're not giving numbers, and only the last person could write it down. So the 6 people who are going in there opening the safety deposit boxes had to do the mental math to solve how many coins there were. And the Andys, conveniently, both of them are in that last role, were able to write down what the answers were and try to figure out what the answer is and figure out what change for a 20 would amount to based on the amounts they were given. But sometimes when you're looking at coins, you kind of forget the rollover, or you mix up. I think one of the common ones is sometimes you mix up, like, I think there was one that had 10 nickels or something like that, and it throws you off because you start thinking in dimes instead of nickels when you see the number 10. So yeah, Andy V had to go back several times before getting it. And unfortunately, I mean, Jen, you're not the only person on your tribe who got stuck. Like I said, Rob had the wrong answer. Sam had the wrong answer. So Andy was just given less time than Andy V was to solve this question. And unfortunately, that means Oro has to go to tribal council.
Oh, good. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
So, I mean, we have some Oro connections. The winners of our immunity challenges go off in a room by themselves and they hang out for a bit, and they don't get the opportunity to scramble. They say, hey, go here so we can watch you all. We take confessionals from them. So we see in the episode, we see everyone kind of just like vibing a bit. And then Karli asks one of the most important questions in a mini. Hey, have you guys all done this before? And we see both Simona and Yap say, oh yeah, I've played a few of these. And both of them come into confessional be like, why did I do that? Why would I let them know? And again, it's because a lot of people in the org community expect a lot of people who play orgs to have a lot of org experience. And we try to cast not so much the experienced players if we can. So saying, yes, I play a lot of orgs can be a real detriment in our games because all of a sudden people start looking at you a little differently. Jen, did this conversation ever come up on your tribe at all?
not that I was privy to, so but it's entirely as I've learned. I learned after I got voted out. I mean, it's entirely possible that there were. I mean, I'm the worst person to ask because I was clearly the one that was not in the know, right? So,
Yep.
Yeah, but like speaking what's not to know, and like some of the things are just Survivor, and especially in an online setting, is sometimes the simplest way of being safe the first round is falling into the right room at the right time with the most amount of people, which we see with Sam, Kayla, Kyle, and Andy C. And I forget who it is that initiates it. It may have been Andy C.
Yeah.
Who just went like, "Hey, us four, we can be safe."
It was actually
right
Kayla.
Now.
It was Kayla who said it, and you especially in a tribe of 7, 4 is the magic number. That's the majority. And I don't know, I don't remember on the day, and I'm doing confessionals for the winner, so I'm not really paying attention to the breakout rooms, but it broke out in a way where one person is pulled for a confessional, 2 people are in a room together, and these 4 happen to be in a room together. I'm like, guess we're controlling the vote now because we can just do that.
Yeah, it was unfortunately Jenn in confessional, Rob and Jabbar alone together, and then the 4 of them, and they were just like, Jenn. But we do see Kayla push back a little bit on your name because you 2 are the only females on the tribe. And she's just like, this makes me nervous if we vote for Jenn. What was your relationship, I guess, to Kayla? Because we see a little bit at the end of the episode that you're like, I like this 4, and it's Sam, Kayla, Kyle, and you. And you're like, I'm not saying this to everybody, but like, I'm feeling this 4. So talk to me a little bit about maybe how you felt about Kayla and Kyle, because we kind of know your relationship with Sam now.
Yeah, I think Kayla and Kyle felt, I mean, it looked to me like they were taking more of an initiative within the tribe. I think it was like me sort of assessing, me assessing where everyone else was at, right? And I had the impression that Rob and I think Jabbar were a little bit more anxious, and which understandably, I think everyone's a little bit anxious, but it's like, how are you sort of managing that, right? And I felt like with both of them, it came out like so okay, so I cataloged that. I think with Carl and Kayla, I felt like they came on a bit strong, but I felt like I actually also have a pretty strong personality. It just I don't know if it came out or not, but I hold it back, and I felt like, okay, long term, I'm not intimidated by these people, and I think that they would find value in sort of what I bring, because but that big of the assumption that that people want partners who could sort of bounce off with them. And I think I'm the sort of person too where, and I mean, I think this is a little bit related to the point about sort of 4 people in the room and all of that, is that I found that one of the, okay, I'm going to digress a little bit and I'll come back, but I felt on hindsight that it was hard for people to work with me too, because I was not willing to throw a name. I felt like it was so hard for me in the game, when people talked with me, I just could not throw a name. And and this was something that was all internal, right? So you wouldn't have come out. And the reason for that was because I thought, on what basis am I throwing out this name? It is so unfair to the person. And the person is going to be hurt based on some unsubstantiated thing that I came up with. And I'm just, and then the part of me was like, oh, but Jenn, you got to play your own game. You can't be like, oh, I want other people to feel better about all of this after. So anyway, coming back to how I felt with Kayla and Kyle, I have felt like, okay, if I know that I have this tendency of, really empathizing with them and thinking about what's right for their game, and if we were aligned, then their goals would be aligned with my goals, if that makes sense. So that was the basis that I felt good about. And I felt like they were really thinking about how they wanted to approach it, and it was fine for me if it was different. I mean, everyone has a different approach, but I was confident in my ability to build some consensus, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I actually think you have some of the wisest words in this entire episode. And it's in a conversation you're having with Sam where you say, you don't want to throw out someone's name because, I mean, you feel bad. You don't really know anyone. And you don't want it to kind of fall back on you if you're pushing too hard. But you also say, in the end, like, I'm forced to vote for someone anyway, so I can't feel bad about having to vote someone out.
Right. And I felt like eventually, I mean, I feel very mixed about this, but eventually my vote went to Rob only because I didn't tell him. Him and Jabbar, I think, were the only two. I never told them explicitly. I felt good about them. And that, I mean, and I didn't promise them anything, And so, I mean, at the point of the vote, I did think to myself, I don't feel like Andy's with me, actually. And I don't feel like, even though I said whatever I did to, I think Carl and Carla, right?
Kayla,
and,
yeah.
Kayla, right. I thought, okay, I feel like it was a little too late. I don't feel like I have them. And by definition, by thoughts, like, okay, then I probably should vote one of them out because they weren't with me. But I thought, okay, but I did tell them I'm good with them. And I wouldn't feel good if I sort of stabbed them first before they stabbed me without giving them a chance to work with me after what I said. And so I thought, okay, since Andy is close with Rob, and I don't feel like I didn't promise Rob anything, I could go with Rob. So, and then I felt mixed about it all after, because I was just like, okay, but then I'm not making the most optimal decision for my game,
right?
But I don't regret my vote. I just my takeaway after it all was just that I have these tendencies and all these the way I think and the way I feel, and maybe my skill sets are just not very aligned with the circumstances that I was in, something like that.
For sure. But like, I think ultimately you land on, I think, like the right name, because we see as like the scrambles going around, like you hear people's like their impressions of people, and like sort of you have Jabbar who's like, I want ADC out. However, it's like I don't think I'll have the capital immediately to take him out. Two, he could be useful in other means, maybe become a shield for me because he is a more vocal person in your like challenge discussions and things like that. So you have that. I think if I was like in your shoes, I think I also would have ended up leaning towards maybe try to be proactive and say Rob, and maybe even something as silly as you have these two guys gushing over each other being the same football team fan. That's an instant connection that none of the rest of us have. Let's cut it in half immediately and keep moving. So I think ultimately your decision is correct based off of the dynamics that you could see around you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for context, and I one of Andy, I think Andy says it, maybe Rob does, one of the two of them do mention this is wildcard weekend of the NFL playoffs. And the Browns are playing the Houstons at that exact moment as this game is starting. And I'm sure the Browns fans don't want to remember that game at all. But it was something that just connected people. And in a game where you're just looking for any reasons to connect, the fact that there are two Browns fans on the exact same tribe is something that can just unite them together. So I think
that's one of the things we were talking about before. Like, we don't know that they're both like Browns fans and are going to connect. And like me, outside of sports, I don't know the sports world, so I didn't know what the heck wild card weekend was, or that the Browns were playing that day. So like that's one of those things that like is an unknown connection.
Absolutely. And like that's the joy of Survivor, is the fact that you get put on a beach with people that you have no idea who they are, and you find those connections that people have. Just when it's so outward, like Andy and Rob have, it makes sense that you are coming to a logical conclusion. I should break this up as soon as possible. And just based on everyone's conversations that we see in this episode, Rob feels like he's on the outside, and he's not the one who is having these conversations. We see him talk to Jabbar, and he's having very good conversations with Jabbar. We see him talking to Andy, and they're connecting over the Browns and everything. But we don't see Rob having the conversations with Kayla and Sam and Kyle that everyone else on the tribe seems to be having. I think Rob is a perfectly logical decision for you to put down as a vote here.
I feel like you've helped me to feel more validated.
No, we're always here to help validate, but we also validate when we say it's the truth, or if we're like, oh, this is actually how it should have went. Or what could have been more optimal. Like, we always try to be as helpful as we can as prod people after the fact as well. But it's all circumstances too. Like Jabbar and Kayla were not on the same starting tribe before we had Naropa come in. And so there's that weird pre-existing dynamic for both of them where they're both hesitant of each other, but they're like, I can get past that though right now until I see them do some shady shit.
Yeah.
So like Sam, or not Sam, Rob has the benefit of he was in a breakout room with Jabbar. They get to have a very good conversation. Jabbar wants to see Rob as an ally. Then when Jabbar and Kayla get into a room together and start talking it through, Jabbar's like, I have Rob. Like, Rob is good. He's good people. I want him. And that's mainly, as you said, maybe part of that anxiousness of Jabbar being on the outside, because he was very aware of who was in which rooms, and he knew those four were all in a room together. So he's like, is it me? Is it me right now? I need to, and if it isn't me, I need to make sure the only person I've had a chance to have a one-on-one with isn't that person either. So like you have like it's all that, it's the stupid circumstances of what happens at the very beginning of a scramble.
Right.
Absolutely. And we also have just perception, right? Perception is so, I wouldn't go as far as to say perception is reality, because obviously reality is reality, but perception helps form the reality in these games. And we see a conversation between Jabbar and Kayla where Jabbar's like, Kyle seems like someone who's really experienced in these games. And some people, like Rob, is a bit scared of that, but I think it could be a very valuable asset for us. Little does Jabbar know, Kyle's never played one of these games before in his life. So it's really interesting how these perceptions work and how these first impressions are so important when you have 20 minutes to decide. And we see Kyle in his confessional saying, I'm vibing with Andy and with Kayla so far, but I haven't had a chance to have one-on-ones with everyone. And when you have 20 minutes to decide who you're voting out, and you don't know everyone, and everyone's like really wary of being in a room away from a majority, it's hard to get a chance for 7 people to have 6 different one-on-ones to get to know people so they can fully evaluate who they want to work with moving forward in the game. Well, I think, you know what, that takes us to Tribal Council here. And we have a couple of questions. Alex, you asked about the pace of the game. And I think we've addressed that a lot. It's quick. You don't get a lot of time. You have to think fast. You have to make kind of gut decisions where sometimes you really want to be using your brain, but you don't get the opportunity to. Jenn, you say, you can figure out and you can vibe and you can vibe with people, but you also have to figure out how everyone else is connecting and vibing with other people. It's that like separate layer, and I'm sure it's like the psychologist in you saying that type of thing, where you can't just evaluate how you connect with people. You have to evaluate with how the people you're connecting with are also connecting with people, because Survivor's a multi-layered game.
I want to pick your brain for the rest of the season while watching this, because the way you think and analyze things is just like so interesting to think about, because I think you think about this game in a way that I could never, and like how you're analyzing things are ways that I could never think about, because I'm not thinking about my allies connecting with other people and how that influences my allies, which then influences me. So the way you're like drawing these triangles is like, I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, I think it's very interesting, right? Like, so I feel like it's the thing of, well, what is best for you isn't always best for someone else, and you want to think about, well, what if you were in their position, what are the factors that influences the way they think about the game? Also, for example, I think I mentioned anxiety earlier, and that was something that I cataloged as, oh, okay, this could be something that throws the person off an alliance, could be something that if this was my partner, I would have take on the responsibility of managing that a little bit, or like why people are vibing. So like, for example, with Kayla and Kyle, I knew that they were vibing because I always saw them in the same room, and I could see that Andy referenced them
Mhm.
Like so, like the number of mentions, right? Or like
Right.
presents, things like that. Anyway.
Perfect. And then I think one of the like more interesting moments of this tribal council is Rob says, you know, this first was about tribe unity and just like making sure we're not losing moving forward. And when Kayla's asked about the same question, Kayla or is asked about like names coming out in the scrambles, it's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of names are coming out, but that name changes based on the different groupings of people in a room. And we see in Rob's voting convention, he's like, I thought I knew what the vote was. Now I'm a little worried because I didn't think there was multiple names out. I thought there was only one name out. It really focuses, it really shows how in tribal council, like the answers, and I mean, anyone who's been watching Survivor 46 this season knows like how you respond in tribal council can be very important and can give things away and prep people or scare people and impact the game further on. So it'll be interesting to see how Rob takes hearing that multiple names are out there impacts his game moving forward. And then we get to the sad part of the episode where Jenn, you're voted out 6-1.
All good. I actually wore a shirt that says "Oh no."
Oh no.
Fantastic.
Just for this. Sorry, I interrupted you.
So Jenn, we have a question here from Andy C, your tribe mate, and he first off, he says he really enjoyed his chat with you. That wasn't shown in the edit. So sorry, viewers. I don't know what the contents of that chat
Way
were.
to go, McKenna.
But what was the most enjoyable part of your experience before being voted out?
I almost think it's in really looking at my own thought process and feelings across the whole thing. So across the whole process, even though it was just one episode, I don't know, 1 hour, whatever, right? So it could be, let's say, starting from pre-game, right? Like, okay, knowing I have a handicap, what are my options? Okay, then thinking about even the players that I like. What was it about them that I like? And is it an idealized version of how I want to be? Like, for example, if I said Aussie, I'm not Aussie, so is that idealized version of it? I mean, I don't know that I want to play like Aussie, but like, or is it realistic to how I actually will play? You know, how does that jump in with my values? So it could be things like during the game, I realized, okay, some people can really compartmentalize. Game is a game. I'm going to be cutthroat, and in personal life, it's a different thing. Like, I respect that, and I can't do that. I can't explain it. I just can't. Okay, so if I know that that's me, that's my limitations, then my play style, and then even just all the unexpected feelings that came up from me, like, okay, I didn't expect myself to be more sort of held back at the start to observe people, because I'm a very extreme extrovert in daily life, and be like, oh, that's how I'm reacting. Why am I reacting the way I do? What are the heuristics that I'm using to sort of make my snap judgments about people? Oh, the parts that I feel conflicted about. Oh, like there's just all these small things. I feel like if I want to be a psychologist or survivor in future, all of these things help me. Not that wasn't the intent sort of coming into this, you know, but now when I watch these survivor episodes, I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like when people say, you know, I feel hurt coming out of an episode, I'm like, oh, I see that, because you now spend like 20 odd days. You really talked about real things, so it feels blindsided. Or when people go into Ponderosa and they're like asking more questions about the game, you know, you might like in the past I might be like, okay, you know, you got voted out, okay, you know, like move on, right? And now I'm like, no, I get it. There's a bit of you that wants closure, because like, and or like when in Survivor, you sometimes see that, okay, they're trying to get intel on the other team, and then being thrown into this, I'm like, oh, dang, how am I going to make any decision without more intel? You know, so all that to say, the short answer is I gained so much more of an appreciation for when the contestants come out and say what they do. Like, I mean, I can't say I get it because I've never been in a Survivor game, but I get it on a micro level, and
Yeah, and I think that's what we thrive for at Dynamic Character Productions, is for people to come out of the game feeling like you do here, Jenn. So the last thing that happens in this episode, we're going back to our coin twist. Jenn, you have to bequeath your coins, and Lex from Trinity Falls and All Stars would like to know, how did you decide who you're going to bequeath your coins to, and why did you choose them?
Oh, this was really easy for me because I was like, there was one person here that I vibe with the most. I really want to see him succeed. So, and I like him as a person. And like, okay, I have some more power. I have a little bit more power amidst the time and no power. Yeah, so, and then I think the other thought was that before in that my last chat with Andy, he had thrown out, I think, Sam's name out. I mean, I knew it wasn't Sam's name. It wasn't really Sam's name on the chopping block because of the hesitancy with which he threw out a name at so late in the, if he had someone, if there was a clear name that wasn't me, it would have been thrown out to me way earlier anyway. But the reason for Sam, I think, that was thrown out was that he was, I think, a bit more withdrawn. He wasn't, and he didn't do it on the challenge. And I thought, okay, this reason probably applies to me too. And I don't know that this should be seen as a detriment, like being withdrawn, because you could be observant. I liked it. So I thought, okay, you know what? If this is the prevailing thinking of Andy and i.e. everyone else that he was aligned with, Sam was probably in trouble. And I'm like, I like this. This is my favorite guy that I vibe with, and he's in trouble. Okay, please do something with it. So it was easy for me.
Perfect. Yeah. I love that. I love it when decisions are easy, because so many things in Survivor are not easy. But I'm glad to hear that one was easy.
Yes.
All right, that takes us to the end of the episode, which means we've been asking the same question every exit interview since our very first season. Jenn, if you could sum up your game in one word, what would it be?
Oh, insightful.
I love
that.
I love it.
Perfect. I think that's absolutely perfect. Jenn, it has been so lovely speaking with you today. So sad it had to happen so soon into this season. I am sure everyone will be clamoring to get you back on one of our seasons in the future. Alex, McKenna, thank you so much for joining us today so we could talk some of the behind the scenes this week. And thank you, viewers, for watching. You know what? We really appreciate that. We do this a lot for us, but in all honesty, we do this for you, the viewers. So I really hope you enjoyed the premiere episode of After the Snuff. Tune in on Monday and Thursday this week for brand new episodes of Moneta Bank. It's going to only get more exciting from here on out. Really looking forward to hearing everyone's responses and thoughts as the season progresses. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel so you know when all our content goes out there, and we will see you next time.